The Mill Grind 5 from Taylormade is here. These are scoring wedges and they are designed for the best players in the world all the way through to you. If you're questioning your wedge game and you want to improve, then getting scoring wedges is absolutely a way to go. There are a magnitude of grinds on offer. In this video today, I'm going to explain what conditions you should look for and what type of player you should be if you want to get into one of these Mill Grind 5 wedges. We've got everything from Tiger Woods through to a high bounce option, played out on the tours and used by some of the greatest players in the game. This video's got it all. Be sure to hit subscribe and get down into those comments with any questions. Explaining bounce can be intimidating. Hopefully I break it down for you so it's nice and simple. Let's go. Tiger Woods grind. We got to start here, haven't we, and give this a little go. Tour aim down to help me with ball position and stance width. Pretty good, grabbed pretty early. This is the Mill Grind 5. It's a first look at it for my channel. Again, I've got the Tiger Woods one in my hand. We're going to talk about that in a minute. What makes these wedges unique? Why would you look at them? Which type of golfer are they for? When it comes to scoring wedges, I actually think they're for all of us. Look, if you can start to strike the golf ball and get some consistency from that hit, scoring wedges are going to control your yardages a bit more. I carry 52, 56, 60. I've got them laid down in front of me here. 120 Tour S-Flex in the 52. Then I change, and this is a new thing for me in the wedges, I've got a 115 in the 610 wedge shaft by KBS, and then a 120. So I go a bit heavier as we go through the lofts. Swing weights, balance points are also quite heavy. I'm holding the Proto. You can see it stamped out in the toe here. We did a video with Tommy Fleetwood at Pinehurst where all we talked about was the Proto. Now the Mill Grind 5 is the new version of that. It is a display of craftsmanship for sure. But the one thing that steps out that you can't ignore as you look at those hosels together, and I've got 6, 7 of these bounce options forged, big forged writing out in the toe there. And when you start to hit these shots, that's when you really get the feel of what forged is and how it helps you as a player. So forged is going to give you a bit more feel. It has the raw face on it. So the raw face then means there's nothing between you and the grooves. But the sound, as you drive one out there, you see it grab, it's a soft sound. That feel, that clicky that you get from the forged wedge is a brand new addition and maybe the most major addition on these Mill Grind 5s as you look at them from the back. Getting into the top, and I've got 60s in my hand here, the next noticeable thing when it comes to shape, and these have been shaped by Greg Cesario. There's a name that's worth listing and listening to. Greg played on the tour, now works at Taylormade. He's put so much effort into the shaping of all these wedges. And one of the things that you're really going to see, which comes to life and is why Taylormade went through the Proto realm before getting into the final product, is the belly of the wedge. So the belly is between my two fingers here as you look down the raw grooves. You've then got the belly, which takes a slightly different shape. So again, let's grab, there's one that caught my eye. We're going to get on bounces, so stay patient with me. SX grind. This is a new addition. Thing you're going to notice here is the back camber. See that little chamfer on the back there, just above the Mill Grind 5 logo? That is designed, if you do open it up, we hit some flop shots in this video. That's how we do it with that. Helps you out of bunkers, soft conditions, very wide from back to front. So a very easy, forgiving wedge to use. I actually really like this. I can see it being good out the rough too. It's just completely different as it sets up. Now you can see this is starting to grab on the grooves, and this is the test club from the Kingdom as I'm showing you all the different bounces, but you can feel it's got that mill grind rough texture between the grooves. I think it's raised micro ribs is what they refer to them at Taylormade. But taking a deeper look, and Q was asking me about this before, you can see how the entry point of the groove, and I'll mark it with a Sharpie just here, circling just the corner of the groove there and the corner towards the heel, how that has been cut is a little different. So when you get this wedge into any moisture, which Taylormade pride themselves on that. If the ground is wet, which it will be on an early tee time, or you play in the poor conditions, this is going to disperse the water better. It's also going to add, because they've gone into the groove slightly differently, and a little bit of an education on the rules of club building, you've now allowed yourself legally more space in the groove to change the shape at which you cut the groove. All of this is things you haven't got to worry about. But the bottom line is, for those of you that love the channel for the information and the tech, this now enables a slightly different shape of groove that will give more spin and give a bit more control, paired up with the forged aspect, coming from the craftsman that's come from a player and now a great engineer, someone who works on these wedges in Greg Cesario. Now let's start to cover bounce. And I grabbed that SX because this is something that I feel like I could potentially go for. It intrigued me. It's a brand new bounce for Taylormade. I've got them all lined up here with all the different names. I'll go through them individually. And then on the floor, I've got the standard bounces that I made for myself. So starting perhaps at standard, that's going to have four-way camber. And this is the one that Tommy Fleetwood gravitated towards. So this is the standard bounce. Notice this is in a 56. It's got 12 on it, but it's got a four-way camber. So it folds away on the toe and the heel, the back and the front. Also notice it's got the little Trottie Golf logo on it. That's right, this one's going in my bag. I really like this bounce and I like this camber. Very versatile, all the different shots, very forgiving. I think the only time you need to come off this is to get into a low bounce, and that would be something you'd get into in your 60 when the grass, certainly here in California, goes dormant. Now, how do we start to think about bounce? I've said it before in videos, but the simplest way to do it is if you're pushing down a beach ball into a puddle, into a bucket of water, it wants to give back. Bounce is the same thing. So as you go down and into the ground, it's how that club wants to give back. Now that one, if you watch carefully, dug a little bit, and I had a little look as to why. It's the low bounce. And if you get onto the low bounce, as the standard's got four-way camber that goes everywhere, now the curvature in the middle, there's really not very much there. This would be a good one here in California when you get to the point when the Bermuda grass goes dormant. This wedge becomes something that you look to use. Turf conditions impact it, also how you strike your wedges. So if you're someone who can play around with getting shallower or steeper, it really can take you down a route where different bounce options open up. The standard bounce, like I say, is what Tommy Fleetwood has gone for. The low bounce becomes a specialist one, I think, when the grass really thins out because of the dormant. But if you are someone who's a good striker of chipping and likes to maybe get shallow on them, you can get away with low bounce as well. So as much as low bounce is for when the conditions change or you become shallow, if you're a bit steeper, you obviously want something that's going to bring you out of the turf. You saw as I chipped one-handed with the low bounce. If you then take the opposite end of the spectrum, which is the high bounce, and then you get to a stage, and I'll try and recreate it here, where you want the club to come out. So if I put the ball back, that was hit pretty clean, but could you see how the club wants to come out of the turf? It doesn't want to get in there. And that's where the high bounce gets quite useful round here. The other place is if the turf is pretty soft. Again, ball back. I'm trying to get super steep on this. See how that came out the turf? Wouldn't allow itself to go in. Maybe not the best example with the turf we've got because it's around a chipping green and a little grainy, but notice how this club doesn't want to get in the turf and wants to get out. Hardly any interaction, and that is that high bounce. And as you look at it, it has a lot of camber, so between finger and thumb, or two fingers, and it says 12 on it as your reference, but you can see it's high. If I go again for an example on the low bounce one, this becomes a much tougher golf shot because it's more likely to want to stay in the turf because this turf's a little bit softer. So this is the low bounce. Try and show you, ball back, club goes low. Wants to grab. Not the best strike, but wants to grab. To give you a better example, it's much harder wedge to use. That one came out, but that was a better technique for sure. But you could see that actually sounded a bit firmer there. So you've got two different bounces, less forgiving in the low bounce. You've got to be a better wedge player. High bounce, more forgiving, I always find. Back to the one that's intriguing me, standard bounce C. So C grind. Again, if I mark this with the Sharpie for you, you can actually see it here. It's well marked out. That then gives me an option. I always like a C grind. If I want to play a higher golf shot, as you open the blade, all the heel relief here makes it much easier to play the higher one. I notice how it snagged a bit with the turf. Stopped pretty quick with the mill grind, with the grooves. But that's leveraging this area. You can actually see that some of the Sharpie is worn away there. If I then go for a section where, say, the lie is not amazing, you want to get nice and close to it, now you can operate the toe, and there's hardly any interaction, so the ball shoots off more. So that's where the C grind would be helpful. And all these options are available in one wedge. The Tiger grind we've talked about, they've actually softened. On the previous model, it would have had a leading edge skew through here. They've softened that off, make it a bit more player friendly. I think in the podcast that I did with Tiger a while ago, he said this wedge is about where you set your hands in order to use it. Again, I think it's not as forgiving as some of the other options, but this is the one that is the new one that's come in, and the first few chips I've hit with it, I like it. I think it's very easy to use. This is the SX, but the bottom line is it just felt very easy. So that was dragged. Grass gave way on me, but look at the wedge control. Let's just see if we can, but this is a 60, so it's a hard shot with a 60. There's drawing one up the hill, and it's hardly marking it. So the first one was an attempt at steep. The second one was a drawn one. But I think with a sole this wide, we can demonstrate it here. If you're playing a bunker shot, if you imagine this was sand and I want to strike behind it, the wide sole is really what brings the difference in, because it'll splash the sand. So you hear the sound, and that was quite a good example. It just splashes. It's very, very easy for traps. That's what I would find with this. I'm playing these full on like a bunker shot. I mean, that's going through the turf so easily. And that would just be how I'd play a bunker shot with this. This sole, 100%, has me intrigued in the 60. I think as you play some other shots, and depending on how you look at your wedges, you might want to think differently. But you can proper see from that, the munch that's grooves have had with the raised micro ribs on the face. You can get these wedges in this chrome finish, but the face will be raw, or they're making them in a black finish. Again, the face is raw. Slightly different feel between the black, because that's a plating, and the chrome. But you're going to have this beautiful mill grind 5. Look, it's a great wedge. It's a good addition. The thing is, you got to understand, different bounces suit different conditions. The whole process has come on. This is number 5 for Taylormade when it comes to mill grind. Cesario, with his 40 years of wedge experience, he's in there making these, which is the man behind it all. And I think there's a lot to be said for what they've produced here. And then they've managed to get forged feel into it. Stagger the weights on your wedge shafts, absolutely something you should customize. I've done that with mine all the way through to the 610 wedge shaft. Different weights now in that as well. I think that's important. You can test that out on longer shots. And then it's going to help you if it's wet conditions as well. Great lineup, mill grind 5. Put a link in the description for you. Any questions, of course, let me know down in the comment section. Pretty good. I mean, decent wedges, fair play, good job.